I'm Cynthia Weaver with the Evidence-Based Practice Group at the Annie E. Casey Foundation. Thanks for joining us today. I'll be your moderator. We're grateful that you can be with us today for this next installment in our ongoing Leading with Evidence series. I'm looking forward to an inspiring and thoughtful discussion today from our panelists as we all learn more about the Family Spirit Indigenous Maternal Home Visiting Program, what it is, how and where it's currently being implemented, and how you can implement this program accessing multiple funding stream options. Next slide, please. The Annie E. Casey Foundation began offering the Leading with Evidence webinar series in 2018. Next slide, please. These webinars offer practitioners and system leaders practical ways to immediately apply evidence-informed programs and practices in your work. This allows you to gain more clarity about how you do what you do. For researchers, advocates, and fellow funders, these webinars offer opportunities to better understand how evidence-based programs and practices can improve outcomes for youth and young adults. Next slide, please. Before we launch into our learning journey this afternoon, let's take just a few minutes to go over some important housekeeping details for the webinar. After we hear from our presenters, we will have some time for questions. We will keep our attendees on mute throughout the webinar, so we ask that you submit your questions by entering them into the Q&A window in the middle of the bottom of your Zoom screen. See where it's circled in this slide. You can submit a question there to the panelists at any time during the webinar, and then we'll answer as many questions as we can during Q&A at the end of the webinar. If you're in full screen mode and you want to ask a question, you may need to return to the event window by using the drop-down controls at the top of your screen. And let me also mention that this presentation is being recorded, and the recording and the slides will be available to you later via email follow-up from us. Please feel free to share these materials with others. Next slide, please. Today, you'll hear from our panelists about the Family Spirit Indigenous Maternal Home Visiting Program and a new version of Family Spirit called Family Spirit Strengths. You'll be hearing a lot of information in under an hour, so here are 3 things that I invite you to listen out for. Family Spirit can be implemented by paraprofessional home visitors. There are 2 versions of Family Spirit. The newer Family Spirit Strengths version includes a behavioral health component. Both versions were developed using a co-creation process with Indigenous communities that centers cultural traditions and values. Family Spirit is authorized for reimbursement on 2 national clearinghouses, the McVie Home Visiting Site and the Title IV E-Waiver Clearinghouse for Child Welfare. Next slide, please. Casey's Evidence-Based Practice Group supports taking proven solutions to scale across organizations serving young people and their families. This is why supporting Family Spirit and the new Family Spirit Strengths adaptation of the original program is so important to our team. Next slide, please. Let's take just a moment to think about the road to scale, or how access to a program can be increased. Our panelists today will be sharing Family Spirit evidence-building activities that are highlighted in red on this slide. As we consider the green panel on the far left, multiple randomized controlled trials have been completed for Family Spirit as part of their evidence-building journey. As a result, Family Spirit is authorized for reimbursement on 2 national clearinghouses, as we just mentioned. The middle panel on this slide highlights adaptations that occur when we need to adjust programming for different populations, or, as you'll hear about from our panelists today, when they tell you about Family Spirit Strengths, when we need to respond to the emergent needs of the same population we may have been serving for years. Our panelists will also share their experience strengthening their data collection system, and how that improved their ability to leverage new funding. That's highlighted on the panel to the far right. Next slide, please. We're excited to hear from our panelists today as they share their experiences developing, implementing, building evidence for, and adapting the Family Spirit program. It's my great pleasure to introduce Leonla Nelson and Emily Harrows with the Center for Indigenous Health at Johns Hopkins University. They'll share a bit about their backgrounds with you now before we dive into learning more about Family Spirit.
Uh, or good afternoon. First, I'd like to introduce myself in my language. I am an enrolled member of the Navajo Nation out in the Southwest. She'e ashche and shledo tko hana bashashin hask ahadzoa e dashachedo kia ane dashanella istans bastant nasha. My name is Leonla Nelson, and I joined the Center for Indigenous Health in 2013. Our center has several sites across Navajo Nation, including in Shiprock, New Mexico, which is where I am joining you from today. The town of Shiprock is located on the ancestral homelands of the Navajo, Pueblo, and Utah tribes. I am a research associate and I serve as the community principal investigator for the Family Spirit Strength Study. I'll send it over to Emily to also introduce herself.
Thanks, and hello, everyone. My name is Emily Harrows, and I'm an associate professor at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, where I've worked at our Center for Indigenous Health and with our Family Spirit program for almost 10 years. I get the great privilege of working with Leonla and her team in Shiprock on our Family Spirit Strengths study as well. Today, I'm calling in from the unceded lands of the Piscataway and Susquehannock peoples where I work and play now, and I want to honor elders past, present, and future, encourage you all to learn about the native lands where you live as well.
Next slide,
Next
please.
slide.
Next slide. At this point, it's my great pleasure to turn our presentation over to Leonla and Emily. They'll give us a much closer look at two versions of the Family Spirit home visiting program. But first, they'll provide context for the urgent need for these programs in Native American communities across the U.S. Next slide.
Thank you, Cynthia, for that introduction. Emily and I are excited to share with you today about the Family Spirit program and its newer adaptations, Family Spirit Strengths. These programs represent 30 years of community-driven work to support Indigenous mothers and their babies. Family Spirit is a national evidence-based home visiting program that started 30 years ago during a small, uncontrolled research study aimed at teen moms after community members prioritized this population as a key population of interest to change the trajectory of families. That work grew over time in various capacities, with our first randomized controlled trial starting in 1991, our second RCT in 2002, and finally our final and largest RCT conducted across 3 sites, enrolling 322 moms and their kiddos and finishing in 2011. Based on the promising findings from these studies, Family Spirit has now been scaled across the US and Canada. Our Family Spirit team is also actively working on ways to tailor the services using precision approaches, work that has been funded through the Casey Foundation, creating new models to address emergent needs, and conducting a 15-year follow-up study of the moms enrolled in the 2005 study to understand the long-term impacts of the intervention on them and their now adolescent and young adult children. Next slide. Give you more of a sense of what Family Spirit looks like now. Family Spirit was created in partnership with Native American stakeholders from 4 distinct tribal communities. The curriculum consists of 65 core lessons with additional models we've developed over time to address emerging community needs. Today, Family Spirit operates in more than 28 states and works in partnership with 170 tribal communities across the US and Canada. Next slide. What makes Family Spirit unique is that paraprofessional home visitors from the local community deliver the lessons. These home visitors are incredible messengers. They understand the local norms, navigate limited resources effectively, and leverage kinship values to build strong, trusting relationships with families. The curriculum covers everything from nutrition to child development to behavior management, and importantly, incorporates local Indigenous child rearing teachings, such as information about ceremonies held during pregnancy and in the child's early years. Next slide.
And as you've heard so far, Family Spirit has undergone these 3 rigorous randomized controlled trials at various points, and these trials showed significant benefits on improving parenting knowledge and practices, decreasing maternal depression and illicit substance use, and increasing children's positive social, emotional, and behavioral development. This evidence has really been critical in supporting the scale up and sustainability of the program. So I think you've been mentioned, but it's been listed as an evidence-based model as part of the home visiting evidence of effectiveness efforts. And it's one of the 21 approved programs for the Federal Maternal, Infant, and Early Childhood Home Visiting Registry, the McV registry. It's also listed as promising on the Title IV Prevention Services Clearinghouse, which is a policy and designed to support families involved in the child welfare system. Can go to the next slide. And this is what it looks like now. So this infrastructure, this basis of evidence has supported our growth. So we're now in all of these green states, which are focused on Indigenous serving communities. That's 170 Indigenous serving communities. But we also have partnered with non-Indigenous communities, and we have ongoing work and programs in those states as well. More recently, we've expanded internationally to Canada, where we have 5 sites, and Aotearoa, New Zealand, and Australia. To date, the Family Spirit program has served over 20,000 families across these countries and settings. However, in all of this work and sort of since the trials and ongoing implementation work, one consistent theme we've constantly heard is that mental health and substance use remain persistent challenges for families being served. And home visiting programs have wanted more tools, really concrete tools and skills to help address these critical areas. Go to the next slide. So let me just show you or tell you a little bit about what this might look like and some of these examples we've heard from partners. So I remember a story that some of our home visitors told us a couple of years ago as we were starting some work on our Family Spirit Strengths program. They mentioned that during one of the Family Spirit programs, the home visitor had been working with a woman, let's call her Sarah, who was a young mother who was about 7 months pregnant. During regular check-ins, Sarah scored high on depression screening tools. These are commonly used in home visiting programs. They're often required. The home visitor talked with her about seeing a counselor at the clinic, and Sarah agreed that, yeah, that might help. But visit after visit, Sarah hadn't actually made it to the clinic. The home visitor would ask, and Sarah would say she meant to call, or she'd forgotten, or that something came up. Finally, sort of towards the couple sessions later, Sarah opened up about what was really happening. The clinic was 45 minutes away, and she didn't have reliable transportation. She'd have to ask the family for a ride, but she didn't want them to know that she was actually struggling. There was stigma around mental health in her community, and she worried about being judged. Even if she got there, she wasn't sure the counselor would understand what her life was really like, the historical trauma, the community contact, the cultural factors affecting her well-being. So while the screening tools were identifying the problem and the home visitor could make referrals, these barriers to logistics, stigma, lack of cultural understanding kept Sarah from actually getting help. This pattern has repeated itself across numerous stories and people being served by Family Spirit. That's why we realized that bringing mental health support actually directly into the home, delivered by trusted community members or the paraprofessional home visitors who actually understand the context, many of whom are from community, could actually bridge this gap. Go to the next slide.
So we developed Family Spirit Strengths to directly address this gap. Developing Family Spirit Strengths took about 3 years. Next slide. Let me provide you some context about why this work is so urgent. Young Indigenous women are projected to have the highest increase in premature mortality by 2030. Young women age 30 and younger are particularly vulnerable. Many of these young women are mothers. 63% of Native American babies are born to parents ages 14 to 24. These challenges are preventable, but they're rooted in long-standing inequalities caused by colonization, forced relocation, and other historical trauma. I also just want to point out on this slide that it's referring to Indigenous people. When referring to Indigenous people in the U.S., AIAN, which is American Indian Alaska Natives, is more technical and institutional, whereas Native American is a more familiar and commonly used term. Next slide. As we heard in the story from Emily, there are many barriers to getting mental health and substance use care across Native communities. Several barriers prevent Native American women from accessing the mental health and substance use care they need. Many are less likely to seek formal services, preferring more traditional and informal support. There are long wait times and too few professionals available, and about 40% of home visits end up being social support rather than the structured intervention, which shows the need, but also the gap in tools to provide more comprehensive care. Next slide.
So that's kind of how we arrived at Family Spirit Strengths. The goal was to integrate mental health and substance use prevention modules into the original Family Spirit program, allowing us to respond to these emergent needs of new mothers and their families, while also facilitating access and delivery. Family Spirit Strengths incorporates very brief individualized short assessments to help the home visitor appropriately tailor the content and curriculum to the family. And it supports family visitors to really just respond to families' mental and behavioral health needs in real time. Go to the next slide. To develop Family Spirit Strengths, we actually partnered with experts from the Common Treatment Approach, or CETA. CETA is a scientifically proven transdiagnostic intervention that combines treatments for trauma, depression, anxiety, and substance use into a single flexible model. It's multi-problem, so it focuses on multi-problems, modular, customizable, adaptable, and scalable. And it's actually designed specifically for paraprofessional providers in diverse settings. CETA was designed and has been tested internationally in over 9 clinical trials globally. And this idea of transdiagnostic intervention comes from the idea that nobody presents with one single issue or one single problem, and that we really need tools and strategies that can address multiple problems, reflecting the realities of most people who are navigating mental health or substance use concerns. And so this sort of combination of its ability to tailor, its ability to address lots of the issues that we know the mothers served by Family Spirit are experiencing, and its delivery modality being feasible for paraprofessionals was something why we thought it was such a good fit with the Family Spirit program. So you could go to the next slide. But the adaptation process itself was quite comprehensive and community driven. So what happened was we actually started with a request and funding from a community partner. So a local partner wrote to us and said, we're concerned that we're not actually reaching the highest risk mothers, and that we don't have the tools to navigate these really complex problems. That then led to some initial seed funding from them to focus on what are these problems and what are the structural barriers that our partners were wanting to address. So we held community roundtable discussions. What emerged from those discussions was actually what led us to the Common Elements Treatment Approach, or CETA, because what emerged was that mothers were dealing with lots of things, that access was a challenge, that trauma was actually something that we needed to at least be informed about when we approach women and families in this situation. So that's what led us to CETA. And then with the support of the Casey Foundation, we were able to convene a national expert advisory panel of Indigenous leaders and child development experts, who they went through section by section of CETA and focused on adapting it for family spirit and Native American communities. And then we were able to pilot that with two community partners who implement family spirit in Native communities. And then we got all together again with our pilot partners to review the feedback and the data we gathered from that pilot process. And that helped us finalize the curriculum. And then we were able to seek and get seek funding for an additional full-scale rigorous study. And we're in an ongoing phase right now of the randomized controlled trial of family spirit strengths. Go to the next slide. And while CETA was tested and implemented with a large variety of diverse cultures and communities around the world, it was still not rooted in Indigenous knowledge and relational frameworks. So this adaptation process that I just described built in these perspectives in order to make the content more relatable and promote engagement with this tool. So some examples of this, of what this looked like. CETA in its original form has a steps sheet that just is very wordy without imagery to guide the provider. What we did then, how we switched this around was we actually built this into a two-sided flip book that has bright imagery and more storytelling elements to support engagement and understanding using storytelling in Indigenous communities. You can see one of our home visitors here, Kim, who's showing off that sort of two-sided binder. CETA also uses a lot of clinical terms for elements such as cognitive restructuring and behavioral activation, and substance use reduction. And these were changed to terms like like thinking in a different way, finding connection, and walking in balance and harmony. Lessons also include common scenarios relevant to the local communities. And as I mentioned previously, CETA had a big focus on trauma treatment and acutely addressing acute traumas. But Family Spirit Strengths took more of a trauma-informed approach that specifically addresses the context of historical trauma. So we take this approach where we work with home visitors to talk about historical trauma with participants. And the idea is that this can actually take out some of the self-blame that people might experience because they're either engaging in substances or feeling bad about themselves. And using this sort of lens helps people understand the context by which these challenges have emerged. Ultimately, language, imagery, and the tools we use are really critical to keeping people engaged and building ongoing community support for programs. Go to the next slide.
It wasn't just about changing the existing content. We wove Indigenous values and practices throughout the entire curriculum. For example, we incorporated connections and relationships to the land to help navigate anxiety or find support. We focus not just on cognitive, emotional, and behavioral health, but also spiritual health, which is central to Indigenous well-being frameworks. Next slide. The final strengths curriculum included 4 core lessons. They are Together on a Learning Journey, which is more akin to what Western psychology calls psychoeducation. Then there's Thinking in a Different Way, which is similar to cognitive coping. Finding Connection or behavior activation in Western psychology terms. And the last one is relaxation. There are also 2 additional lessons that can be woven depending on what challenges a mom is struggling with. They are Walking in Balance and Harmony, which is for substance use and reduction, and Getting on a Good Path, which is akin to problem solving. The key to all of this is that no one course of strengths is the same for each person. The program is designed to be tailored to a person's needs. We do this tailoring through several approaches. We may lay out a plan and then decide to increase the dosage of different lessons, or change the order, or add new lessons as new challenges emerge. Each person is unique, and our goal is to meet the person where they are with the tools and content that best fits their needs. Next slide. A critical component of Family Spirit Strengths is the apprenticeship model of training. This isn't a take the manual and go approach. Home visitors learn through doing with the support and clinical supervision throughout every phase of the implementation. CETA trainers train local supervisors and home visitors from the communities. These supervisors provide local supervision and receive additional support from the trainers. Over time, they work towards becoming trainers themselves. Weekly supervision meetings help determine what content to deliver, when, and how. Trainers also provide critical support for navigating challenging circumstances such as violence, abuse, neglect, and self-harm. Next slide. We're currently testing family spirit strengths in an ongoing study. The stars on the map show you where we're currently enrolling for family spirit strengths. We're enrolling caregivers who are pregnant or have a child under the age of 24 months who are experiencing high levels of depression, anxiety, or substance use issues. If the study demonstrates effectiveness, we'll move towards scaling up and sustainability, following the same pathway that made the original Family Spirit program successful. Next slide.
And as we think about the potential scale up and sustainability of strengths, we actually just have this roadmap to follow. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what this looks like in real time right now in terms of implementation and funding examples from Family Spirit, the original Family Spirit model. You can go to the next slide. So as we presented earlier, Family Spirit has proven evidence demonstrating success in improving child development, improving maternal health, and promoting positive parenting practices. This evidence base has been critical to the program's expansion. So Family Spirit is listed on the Federal Registry for evidence-based models that can be implemented with MCV funding. It is the only nationally approved model that was designed for and by tribal communities. Go to the next slide. The strong evidence base has also helped ensure Family Spirit is available through other national clearinghouses. So in addition to home-vis, Family Spirit is listed on the California Evidence-Based Clearinghouse. And as I mentioned, the Title IV Prevention Services Clearinghouse, which lists evidence-based programs that can support families involved in the child welfare system. These listings have been instrumental in activating funding streams to support communities implementing Family Spirit. Go to the next slide. So communities become Family Spirit through becoming a communities can access Family Spirit through becoming a Family Spirit affiliate site. This is pretty straightforward in terms of the way you might want to do this. So first, to find out more about Family Spirit and what affiliate looks like, you can contact the Family Spirit program by emailing that address there or calling that number. Oftentimes, programs that are interested or organizations that are interested will receive a Family Spirit information packet that details all sorts of information about what it looks like to get the program up and running and to carry on the implementation. And then there'll be a follow-up meeting to review Family Spirit information and also for us, our team, to gather information on the community site and understand sort of more about the local context and community. Once that happens, if all things are going forward, there's a contract that's done. So paperwork signed between Family Spirit to finalize a budget plan and scope of work. And then we process a model agreement. And that model agreement is then followed by stages of training and ongoing support. And we have various training modalities, including online and in person, and then ongoing support through both monitoring, sort of reporting back data, but also on program implementation. So go to the next slide. So just to give you a sense of what this could look like, here's some examples of implementation. So this is the first one, which is the Intertribal Council of Michigan. This is what we call a consortium model of several tribes, so tribes that have come together across the state of Michigan. The ITC of MI is what they're called, and they use a braided funding approach. So this includes federal competitive grants along with state appropriate home visiting funds to fund their home visitors in program. They have multidisciplinary staff. So I know we've mentioned paraprofessionals. That is how Family Spirit was tested, but sometimes in implementation, it can be implemented by a nurse home visitor who is paired with paraprofessional or other health educator. And some of these programs have looked at sort of expanding capacity. So the funding is not just for Family Spirit, but often this braided funding stream provides complementary services such as doula support or Head Start services or nutrition support and things like that. Go to the next slide. The second example is again a consortium example. This is the state of Minnesota, and they have a consortium of several tribes and also non-tribes, which are community health organizations. Their funding almost comes entirely through the state of Minnesota. And they have multidisciplinary teams, but mostly focused on health educators with some nurse supervisors sometimes providing ongoing support. They have sustained home visitation services over many years, and they've expanded capacity to provide support for pregnant women and their families, and to provide additional support around topics like prenatal care, breastfeeding, and promotion of cultural traditions around parenting. So sometimes there's activities or cultural and community gatherings that they can provide for families of young children. So while these two examples I just gave you are larger consortium sites, there's also numerous individual tribes and other community serving organizations, both urban and rural, that have been successful. And Family Spirit affiliates affect change and support families irrespective of who they are and what they're doing, just by working in their communities with these families. Go to the next slide. So it's been really exciting to see this work grow sort of nationally. But one of our big other initiatives, as I mentioned, was that we've been really excited to expand our work internationally. And this has been funded by the Lego Foundation as part of their Build a World of Play challenge. Over the next 3 years, we're working to expand to serve 240,000 families in the United States. And then in those other countries of Aotearoa, New Zealand, Canada, and with First Nations communities in Australia. This is also going to be combined with intergenerational play spaces that will further support that cultural and community well-being and that connection between all generations. And then recently, we're also working on some expansion of Family Spirit strengths work, where we're piloting cloud-based training and coaching modules for paraprofessionals, with the idea that really thinking about implementation strategies and how we can advance our work to scale this up if we can prove it's effective. You can go to the next slide. And so here is the real map of where we are right now. We'd love to support additional expansion and support for tribal communities or other non-tribal communities across the US and these countries going forward. And we're really grateful to the Casey Foundation for all their support in helping us to get to these places, with these two programs. So with that, I'll wrap up.
Next slide, please. So when we think about the path to scale, we're thinking about what Casey is learning from this work that we've supported. And I think there are 3 takeaways here, primary takeaways. There are so many things that we've all learned from supporting this work. Adaptation is a pathway to relevance and engagement. I mean, that's so important. I'm going to say it one more time. Adaptation is a pathway to relevance and engagement. I think we're learning more and more in the evidence-based practice world that relevance and engagement for participants are so important, particularly leveraging culture as a behavioral asset that can increase the relevance of the material and increase the engagement of those who are participating. I'd also highlight the fact that taking advantage of technological innovations can, in fact, ease the burden of data collection and activate continuous quality improvement. And let's think about that for just a minute. So, we talk a lot in the evidence-based practice world about community-based organizations who are serving populations, collecting data to build the case for what they do. But that's often not as easy as it sounds. And so we've been paying attention to making technological innovations available to those who are implementing programs so that they can collect real-time data. We're not talking about data exclusively for evaluation. Certainly evaluation is important, but I think real-time data that can help community-based organizations strengthen and improve their implementation is tremendously important. This real-time data can help us better understand for whom and under what conditions is a program effective. And it can also help community-based organizations adjust and tweak what they're doing in a more precise and strategic way. So real-time data collection, making meaning of that data, and then turning that data into action that can really activate continuous quality improvement and implementation is tremendously important. And then evidence-based building that activates federal funding streams like the Title IV E-waiver, Family First Prevention Services Act is certainly one path to scale. Emily and Leona also mentioned the McV maternal home visiting funding stream. And then I think in some sites, those funding sources can come together to help implement a program. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So Q&A. In the time we have left, we're going to move into some Q&A. We're grateful for the thoughtful questions that so many of you have shared with us. While we don't have time to answer each question, we'll start with some questions that get at some overarching themes that we saw across your questions. So one of the questions that or a theme I guess I've seen in the questions is that Emily and Leona, you talked about how Family Spirit focuses on Indigenous mothers and their children. What about fathers? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Start on that. When we do our home visits and we have our families and when we're enrolling them, actually, if the dads are present, they can be present. Usually, sometimes moms look to the dad for just some confirmation or just some double checks of like, does this sound good? And sometimes the dads are like, this sounds great. You should do this. Very supportive of them being of the moms being in this program. And so when we do the home visits, if the dad is there or present, we definitely include them in the lessons if they want to be a part of it. But we also let the moms know ahead of time if that's the case of like, this might be a little sensitive, just want you to know, and give them the option of if they want to invite a partner or any other family member to listen in or be part of the lessons. But in terms, but there's some other work that our center is doing that directly is for dads. Is we have two programs going on right now: the Strong Fathers program and the Strong Man program, and those are they're group-based programs that really help to support dads in raising children or just being there for other community members as well. Emily, do you want to add a little bit more about Strong Man?
Yeah, so Strong Fathers is a group-based program that brings together fathers, and it really came out of the origins of Family Spirit being a family-based intervention. And so it's been sort of like adapted and changed from these first roots in the Family Spirit maternal child health area. And then Strong Man is a newer program that we're working on that is and involved in a research study that's actually adapted from Family Spirit strengths, and it came from this knowledge that fathers, in particular young fathers, are facing quite substantial mental health and substance use concerns, and there was a need for actually more focused attention. So similar story from like a Family Spirit kind of serves everybody to a more focused intervention that's really focused on these emergent needs. And so that's being tested right now with very similar curriculum and approaches. It's again an adaptation from the Common Elements treatment approach for strongman, and it's delivered on an individual basis. So that's some exciting work, and we hope to be able to share back on that as we get a little further along with it.
That's great. I hope we'll be doing a webinar on that soon. We also talked about, you mentioned data collection. I talked about data collection. There's some interest in how Family Spirit can help with that data collection piece. Is the system that you mentioned, the data collection system, is that available to Family Spirit affiliates? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for raising that. We use real-time data in multiple ways. So just briefly, it's used actually like in this active way to pivot the curriculum in real time, right? So it's like to create and guide adaptations. It's not the only thing used, but it's one central thing. And then obviously, as you were saying, Cynthia, to understand impact, but also to improve quality. And to facilitate all that, we've been really fortunate to partner with Care4 software, which has built a custom data collection system for Family Spirit affiliates that is offered at a very low cost to our affiliates, and is really customizable and to our affiliates in our context. So it has all sorts of evidence-based tools that we recommend as a Family Spirit model actually already built in it, and it facilitates kind of that ongoing, what we might call quarterly report, which is a report that we have our affiliates provide to the Family Spirit team to support implementation support. So it's not just about reporting numbers, but it's talking about the challenges so that our teams can meet with you and really guide affiliates through ongoing implementation support. So Care4 is the platform. It's very cheap. And I know that it has a whole host of tools embedded in it to make it really easy to pick up and implement.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Data collection near and dear to my heart. Particularly actionable data collection. Thanks. So, it's interesting. You've both shared your experience developing Family Spirit and Family Spirit strengths. And, there are some folks listening in who are really wondering about advice that you might be able to give them about working to develop a new program. There are folks who are developing programs, and they're really interested in your lessons learned, your reflections, I guess, about advice that you could give them. Folks who are working to develop programs now, particularly programs for Native American communities or other communities that share a cultural tradition.
Yeah, that's such an important question to ask. And when I think about that, and we think about programs, at least here, on Navajo, we're always thinking about what is best for the community and how can we make sure that we're still being respectful to the community members. And so just convening boards, having conversations with local community members, getting input, and then, using that feedback and taking it to heart, as much as you can. Because we also know like there's also this institutional side, right? But just trying to still navigate that can be a little tricky, but listening to the community and as a researcher and myself, and I've heard this before, I've said this before, when we as as somebody who's doing research in my own community, it's thinking about, am I being a good relative? What we're doing now, how is this, how are we benefiting from this? And how can we make sure that the community is gaining from this as well? And just keeping that in mind when we're doing these programs, I think is really important.
I would, yeah, absolutely. I think like all of our work is centered in like community driven needs, wants, desires. And I would just say also really thinking about where are the gaps. We had heard for a decade about this mental health gap, just from experience of implementing and our program partners implementing Family Spirit. And so really thinking about where is the gaps that you can address and honing in on solutions that really focus on that, I think is really important. And then just one other thing is to be flexible, like to try and design programs with flexibility and adaptation in mind. I think that's one of the reasons we were drawn to the common elements treatment approach is it didn't look like the same thing for everybody. And we know that our families aren't the same thing and the same, don't experience the same situations. And so I think when thinking about programs you're designing from the ground up, thinking about ways that promote that flexibility and rather than like shying away from it, really thinking about how can you harness that to create something more tailored. And then the last thing I just think is always be thinking about implementation challenges and, you know, at like, it's great to design a program that's 20 weeks, but are people going to show up for 20 weeks, that type of thing. And so just always thinking about implementation as a really key driving factor as well, I think is important.
Oh, thanks for sharing those reflections. Yeah, all of those really resonate with me, particularly that flexibility piece and really the idea that um, this is iterative, particularly when we're listening to communities. And as you said, Leonla, is this still relevant, or is something else happening that we need to know about? So thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing those. I think we have time for one more question. And this is an interesting question. It's the very exciting, the idea of this expansion through the Lego grant to New Zealand, Australia, Canada. I mean, wow. Wow. And have you engaged in some of those planning and strategizing and implementing? Are you starting in one country first? What does that look like? And do you have any cross-site learnings if you're working on multiple sites, multiple countries, new countries now? Any learnings and conversations? Like, what has that been like, right?
Yeah. I can speak to this because we are very engaged in this. So we have 5 sites in Canada implementing this in partnership with the First Nations Health Authority. And so they've gone through training and are implementing Family Spirit. And then we have a number of sites in Australia and New Zealand that are kind of at various stages of that pathway. I think some really big cross-site learnings that we've taken away is it's really exciting to expand and scale this. And what people have loved about Family Spirit is the flexibility and adaptation. When sometimes we've gotten there and in our meetings, they've said, oh, we know about home visiting programs. There's this program or that program, but we've always been hesitant to implement them because they don't fit our communities. We can't change them to fit our communities. We can't adapt them to really fit. So we need to do group-based sessions because we span, we have to take float planes to get to communities, those types of things. So it's sort of, they've definitely been some juxtaposition with sort of the structured nature of some alternatives that they've encountered in the past and sort of the flexibility of Family Spirit and really customizing it to a community. So that's been one thing that has definitely stood out. That's also allowed more, one of the ways Family Spirit has worked is we don't necessarily prescribe like this cultural teaching or that cultural teaching because we work across so many diverse communities and tribes. So there's 574 federally recognized tribes in the US, thousands of languages. You can just imagine, like, you can't say do it this way or that way because it's not specific to community. And so what we've long worked on and through training that doesn't necessarily come apparent in our curriculum if you were just reading it is inviting people to bring their cultural practices and traditions into the programming itself, whatever those might be. And I think that also is a little bit of flexibility that Family Spirit has taken on because of its need to really work across these different communities that we've heard our partners globally really like. The last thing I'll say is that it's also really been enlightening to think about the context and the differences in context when we talk about screening, let's say for maternal depression, which is something very common in the US and other places. they hear that as a potential way to take kids away from families. And so these terms that we use and the context in which we operate look quite differently. And so back to Leonla's point is like really making sure you're listening first for communities, for their priorities, for their context, their history, and using that to guide the process has been really important in that work.
That's just fascinating. Thank you. Thank you, Leola and Emily, for sharing the Family Spirit work here in the US and then sharing about some of the new countries and new sites. I wish we had time to talk about the intergenerational play spaces, but we're running out of time. So thank you. Gratitude to both of you for joining us today.
Thank
As we
you.
close out, let me remind you that we will send out the recording and the slide deck in a few weeks, both to those who attended live today and also to those who registered. You can feel free to reach out to me directly at Casey if you have questions, or to reach out to Emily and Leola at the Center for Indigenous Health at Hopkins. That's it for our presentation today. Thank you so much for joining. I will say coming soon, our next Leading with Evidence webinar will highlight functional family therapy foster care and how that's being implemented. We look forward to seeing you all again at that time. And again, thank you. Thank you, Leola and Emily.